Spoiler warning! Spoiler warning! If you have not seen or played the whole of the Steins visual novel, this will be containing extreme spoilers about it, so I would recommend you stop watching it. Now, if you're hard-headed and you're doing it anyway, or if you've in fact seen or played through the entirety of the Steins visual novel, feel free to stay. And I'd like to welcome you all to my final thoughts and extras video for the Steins visual novel. Extras we'll be going over in a bit, and to start that off, I have scanned the entirety of the Steins official fan book, and I will provide a download link for anyone who wants it. If you already have it, you don't have to download it, but if you haven't, I will be going over it, and I will show relevant pictures on the screen so you don't have to download it if you feel so inclined not to. But there are some things in it that I will not be going over in great detail if you would like to look over. It really is an interesting fan book to look through. Official fan book, might I add. So, let me get prepared for my next step, and we'll keep going. Alright, so the question here is, what is Steins Gate? Well, I'm assuming if you're still here, you probably know what it's about. It's a story about time travel, and how it can bring many joyous things, such as family members back from the dead, and give you a chance at love that you would never have gotten otherwise, but it can also be harsh and cruel. And in this universe, it shows you the dangers of what happens when you get things that you're not, quote, supposed to have, and how it can affect other things. Now, of course, that's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is, this is a story about Okabe Rintaro, one of the few, quote, harem characters, which I take that term very lightly because it's not quite a harem in the general sense, but on the other hand, it is because he's surrounded by a bunch of girls, and there's a bunch of different endings with girls, so it's the easiest thing to compare it to, so we're going to call it that. But it is one of the few harem type of anime slash visual novels that actually has an interesting character for the main character. Most of these generally have a very flat main character, very boring main character, and his role is generally just to act as the video camera for you to see all the other characters. Now, of course, Okabe Rintaro, he's a great guy, and I love him, but the rest of the cast of Steins Gate are really what helped put this together along with him. And the cool thing about these characters is, while they initially seem to have very traditional anime stereotypes, which is a good way to help you get a grasp on the characters initially, as you watch, you start to see that these characters start to change, and they're not all flat characters. They're dynamic characters, such as Ferris starts out being very bubbly, but as you go on, you realize that she is kind of a sad individual, and you only really find that out whenever she has her father and realizes that she has to lose him in order for Mayuri to live. And then on the other hand, we have Mayuri, who starts out as a very ditzy and kind of dumb, airheadish type character, which I will admit the first time I watched the anime, at least before I got to the, the halfway point, the first time I watched it I really didn't like Mayuri. I thought she was kind of annoying, and I every time she would talk, I was like, stop talking. But as you get further along in the story, especially if you've watched it more than once, you start to see that she's actually an incredibly important character, and a very interesting character at that, in that when everything else is falling apart, she's got Okarin's back, and she helps him through all of these hard things that he's going through. And it's really nice. I really like her character in particular now, which is funny because she was my most hated character before. Now, as for the visual style, it's very obvious that they don't go for a traditional anime visual style. I mean, they definitely do have a anime-looking visual style, but they've got this art style that's a little bit different. And I'm not really sure how to explain it. Like, you've obviously already seen it, I hope, by this point. And I'm not sure how to explain the visual style, because, like, I'm looking at some stuff right now. It's patchy. Maybe that's the best way I could really describe it. Patchy. Which doesn't sound good, but it actually is very interesting, and I like it. The science fiction, as well, is really neat, and they do a very good job at keeping loopholes tied up, with a few exceptions. Which one of these was, I talked about it with some people before, but whenever Ocarin's sending the final D-mail type thing, which is really where they're deleting the message that Cern got about Ocarin's first text, it's been said, well, how does deleting that text in the present change the past? Which doesn't quite make sense. And that one I think is a bit of a loophole in the visual novel. In the anime, they sort of patch it up a bit by having the phone wave running at the same time, so maybe somehow they made the phone wave able to delete information from the past. I'm not 100% sure on how that works, but it makes a little bit more sense in the anime when they do it that way. But it is a small loophole, I feel, and it's something that's mostly overlooked. Oh yeah, speaking of the anime, highly recommend you guys watching it. If you have not seen it, it is really good, and the clips that I have shown are only the smallest bit of what's in it. Of course, they do an amazing job of showing what's in the visual novel almost to a T, and they remove things that are like whenever Ocarin has a repeat day and nothing important's going on, they do a really good job of tying that up very quickly and in an understandable way generally. And for that, they did an amazing job with the anime. Now for this anime, both the sub and the dub are actually pretty good, which is surprising because a lot of times the sub will be pretty good, but the dub will just be kind of eh, because they'll either not employ the right voice actors that could better fit it, or they do the thing where they don't lip sync very well, which is atrocious because it's incredibly distracting. And for this one, it's a Funimation dub, which generally are done better than most, and this one, they have some really good people set up for the voice actors for the dub, the English dub. So, whatever format you prefer, either Japanese dub or an English dub, take your pick, because they are both quite good. And in particular, I'd like to, just to strengthen the idea that the dub is actually decent in this one compared to most, that the main character, Ocarin, of course in Japanese we've heard that he has this magnificent laugh as Hoin Kiyoma, and in English, of course, you know, that's the type of thing that has a bad habit of getting turned from to like kind of like ha ha ha, you know, something kind of not so good. But the English voice actor did a really good job of almost nailing it. Like, obviously he can't recreate the voice perfectly, but man, that is probably the closest thing you're going to get in English. So good on that one. And they also, of course, capture Ocarin's way of talking very flourishy and very sophisticated in the English dub very well, actually. And they mix in a few pop culture references, which may or may not get a laugh out of you, but generally they're pretty good. So if you have not seen the anime, I would highly recommend watching it. Even if you don't want to watch the whole thing, watch the first episode, because if you've only seen the story once, either played it or seen it, watching it again, at least the first episode, really makes the first episode make sense. Because the first episode, the first time you watch it, you were supposed to be like, whoa, what's going on? Why is she talking to him? What's he talking about? Wait, what? And that's how you're supposed to experience it the first time. But the second time you play through it, everything makes sense. Now moving on, the OVA episode, I don't know if the OVA episode's actually based on anything visual novel related. I know it's not in this visual novel. I don't know if it's maybe based off of a short story, if it's something that the anime team just came up with themselves, but it's pretty good. It does a good job of tying up the story a little bit more if you're interested in that kind of thing. And then the movie comes right after, well, I think about a year after the OVA ends, I believe is what it is. And man, it's pretty good. I don't know how they did it, but they somehow captured the feel of the entire Steins Gate series. Not quite in the same way, but they captured some of the feelings that were in the Steins Gate series and somehow shoved them into like an hour and a half. So if you're more interested in more Steins Gate related items, you should give that a look as well. It's I know it's on YouTube at places, and I'll put a link into the description. I don't believe it's actually available in America at the moment. Legally is what I mean. So I know it's on YouTube, along with, of course, any other number of streaming sites, but that's where I watched it. And one last note, I've got an Amazon page open. You can get the Steins Gate Complete Series Blu-ray and DVD combo for $35. $35! About a year, 2 years ago, I think a year ago, I purchased both Part 1 and Part 2 of the Steins Gate DVD Blu-ray combo pack for $30 a piece, and that was on sale. That was like half off. I had such a good deal, and this is $35. If you're anyway interested in it and you have the ability to purchase it, you should really take a look at it. It's quite good. Alright, so that's my feelings on Steins Gate and the anime and everything like that. Next, we're going to move on to the fan book, which you can download from the description, or if you don't want to, I will be placing relevant scanned pictures in front of your face for your viewing pleasure. So, we're going to start from the beginning. First, we start out with a message from the creator of the game. Gives a little bit of information behind his inspiration for the game and whatnot. It's a fun little read. It's in both English and Japanese. Can't read the Japanese. And then next, we move on to character profiles. These ones are always pretty fun. They show some character art for your character, including, not for Ocarina or Daru, but for everyone else, pretty much. At least all of the main girl characters have their different expressions and stuff, and gives a little background information about them, so that one's always kind of fun. Boy, they even have a picture of 4C in here. Everyone loves 4C, right? Ugh. Next, we're given a map of Akihabara, which, of course, isn't the real Akihabara, but they state that the Akihabara of Steins Gate is nearly identical to the real Akihabara found in Tokyo. Which, I'm sure it differs somewhat, but the inspiration was definitely there. They give you this cool, like, road map, so if you were able to enter, like, the 3D world of Steins Gate, you could navigate through it, which is kind of neat. I like these type of things. These are really nice extras to add. Now, next, we move on to world line information. This is the most important thing I wanted to bring up, which is explaining in dizzying detail how the world lines play out. It's actually this large chart that I'm showing right now. You can follow it. You'll want to start at the point it says start, otherwise you will not understand anything. But it shows you the different attractor field betas, which is the world lines that you start on. You start in attractor field beta. Then you move to attractor field alpha, which is where a majority of the game takes place in all of its different world lines. You of course have the Steins Gate attractor field, and then on the bottom you got this curious little pink one called attractor field omega. Now you might be saying, well, I don't remember attractor field omega. Well, you do. You just don't know you do. And that attractor field omega was only present for a short period of the game. Chapter 7 for Ferris's ending. Whenever Ocarina sends the D-mail where he's trying to save both Mayuri and Ferris's father, which is, you know, when he doesn't send the D-mail to more or less kill Ferris's dad, he ends up sending a D-mail to save both Mayuri and Ferris's father, which takes him to attractor field omega. Now, things to note, first off, it's a completely different attractor field, so everything's different, which is why he only knows Ferris, no one else knows him, he's dating Ferris, and it's all kind of tragic, honestly. It's really sad, because Ocarina kind of has to shoulder all of this aloneness with no one but Ferris, and honestly, she doesn't even understand. And one other thing to note, so there was this thing, I was going to mention it at some point, I wasn't sure if the game would, so I'll mention it now. Attractor field omega. When Ocarina jumps to that world, he notes on the divergence meter when he goes to Mr. Braun's house, oddly enough, because no one there knows him. He notices on the divergence meter that divergence almost hasn't changed. It's changed very little, when in fact, it's actually changed a lot. He's went on an entire different attractor field, and I haven't seen any official documentation of this. However, I have found on a couple forums that people have actually said this, which makes me think that it's probably true because I've seen no evidence to deny it and no one else has an explanation, that attractor field omega is actually a negative divergence number. And in fact, Ocarina said, oh, well, that number almost didn't change. In fact, it changed a lot. It went all the way down to 0 and then passed it into the negative. but the divergence meter can't display negative numbers, which is why he didn't realize how large of a change it had been. And of course, finally, we have some artwork. The great part of the fan book here. Everyone loves artwork, right? We have some interesting pieces. Some of these I've seen before. You know, like online, like one of these. Oh yeah, like this one right here is one that was shown whenever I installed the game. We got some other ones. We got this kimono one, which is kind of funny looking, because I don't really imagine Kursu in a kimono. We have some more of Kursu. We have some swimsuits one. I mean, of course, you know, there's more art after that, but yeah, the swimsuits, yeah. Is everyone staring at her boobs in that one? I think they are. There's Ocarina and... It's a really weird one. I do like these pictures, though. They're a lot of fun. And that's the entirety of the official fan book, with the only other real notable thing being that with the fancy collector's limited, whatever you call it, version of the game, it also came, I'm actually physically taking them out right now, though I'll just be showing you guys a picture. It came with 2 of the Future Gadget pin, like membership pins or whatever they're called. One of them says OSHM***A 2010. The other one says OSHMKUFA 2010. These are recreations of the pins from the game. They seem to be fairly good quality for my limited knowledge of pins, because I don't really have like a ton of pins. But for my limited knowledge of pins, they seem fairly nice, and I doubt I'll ever actually use them for anything, but they're cool nonetheless. Maybe a Steins Gate cosplay one day. I don't know. Wow, this went a lot longer than I thought. Anyway, but of course I've got, you know, a little bit of sadness here because it's ending, because it's been such a long thing. It's been in my life, like, you know, every other day Steins Gate has been in my life for quite a while now, and it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit sad that it's finally leaving, because it's been there every day, and I've been counting on it every day being there, every other day being there, and now it's just kind of gone, and I'm gonna have to go and play other games. But anyway, new Let's Play is gonna be Valkyria Chronicles. Will be coming out in a few days. I am playing the PC version of Valkyria Chronicles, which at the time of recording came out today. It runs pretty well, actually. It looks better than the PlayStation 3 version ever did. It's only got one minor audio bug, which I'll explain in more detail when that series starts, but otherwise it looks very good. Really good story. If you're interested in strategy games or really good anime stories, feel free to check it out. But that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!